We are all storytellers, whether we realize it or not. Our lives are made up of moments, some ordinary, some extraordinary. And it is the extraordinary ones that shape not just how others see us, but how we see ourselves. But here's the truth most people avoid. The extraordinary doesn't happen without risk. We've been conditioned to value safety, security, and predictability. That's understandable. Comfort is, well, comfortable, but comfort never created a legacy. No one remembers the person who stayed silent in the room, played it safe, and walked the well-paved path. We remember those who stepped into uncertainty with purpose. The ones who said, I don't know what's on the other side of this decision, but I believe it's worth finding out. Risk doesn't always mean danger. It means exposure to potential loss. It means stepping into a space where the outcome isn't guaranteed. And that's exactly where growth happens. No invention, no movement, no personal breakthrough ever happened in the safety zone. The greatest chapters in your story are waiting outside of your comfort zone. Ask yourself this: what story do you want to tell 1 year from now? One that begins with, or one that begins with, I went for it. And here's what happened. You see, risk isn't something to be feared. It's something to be respected. It means you care about something enough to pursue it, even if success isn't promised. And when you do that, regardless of the result, you become someone worth listening to. That's where confidence grows. That's where leadership is born. That's how your story begins. So if you want a story that matters, take the risk. If Fev keynotes of the speech, no risk, no story, growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. Playing it safe may feel secure, but it rarely leads to memorable achievements. Risk is not recklessness. It's the birthplace of progress. Calculated risks are where creativity, innovation, and transformation live. Stories worth telling come from bold decisions. The legacy you leave is shaped by the chances you take, not the ones you avoid. Leadership demands courage to face uncertainty. Those who inspire are the ones who act despite not knowing the outcome. You can't write a powerful story without turning the page. Every risk is a new chapter. Step into it, and your life becomes a narrative worth sharing. Growth is not a passive process. It does not occur when everything is predictable, stable, and easy. In fact, the very nature of growth implies discomfort. It implies friction, uncertainty, and moments where you are not entirely sure what the outcome will be. That's because real growth, meaningful, transformative growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. This isn't just a poetic idea. It's rooted in biology, psychology, and the way human beings have always adapted to challenge. Think about it. When your muscles grow, they do so by breaking down and rebuilding stronger. When your mind grows, it happens through encountering new perspectives, solving new problems, and taking on challenges you haven't faced before. The comfort zone is, by definition, a place of low stress and low risk. It's a mental state where everything feels safe and familiar. You know what's expected of you. You know how to perform. And because you stop questioning, stop adapting, and slowly stop progressing. The comfort zone feels good because it gives you a sense of control, but it is deceptive. It tells you that everything is fine while robbing you of your potential. You may feel calm, but you are not growing. You are merely maintaining, and there is a big difference. Now contrast that with what happens the moment you step outside of that zone. When you put yourself in a situation that challenges your skills, your beliefs, or your patience, your brain goes into learning mode. It becomes alert, more active, and more responsive. There is a spark of energy and inner stretch. You begin to notice your thoughts more closely. You ask better questions. You listen more attentively. You reflect more deeply. In that state, even failure becomes fuel. Every mistake teaches you something new. Every setback becomes an opportunity to recalibrate, to reflect, and to get better. We tend to believe that growth should feel good, but often it doesn't. It feels awkward, anxious, sometimes even overwhelming. That's a sign that you're moving into unfamiliar territory. And that unfamiliar territory is exactly where new versions of yourself are waiting to be discovered. The challenge is that the comfort zone whispers in your ear, convincing you that discomfort means danger. It tells you to retreat, to wait until you're more ready, more prepared, more confident. But confidence is not a prerequisite to growth. It's a result of it. You earn confidence through action. You build it by facing challenges, not avoiding them. Some people wait their entire lives hoping that growth will come without risk. They wait for perfect conditions, for the right time, for guarantees. But life doesn't offer guarantees. It offers opportunities. And those opportunities are often disguised as moments that make you nervous. The interview you're scared to go for, the honest conversation you've been putting off, the dream you keep delaying because the path is unclear, these are all invitations to grow. And they are almost always uncomfortable. The irony is that the more time you spend outside your comfort zone, the larger that zone becomes. What used to terrify you becomes manageable. What once seemed impossible starts to feel achievable. That's how growth compounds over time. You don't wake up one day transformed. You take a step, then another. Each time you stretch yourself, you increase your capacity. Each time you act with courage, you deepen your resilience, and resilience becomes the foundation for all future growth. There's something else too. When you grow, you give permission to others to grow. You show them what's possible. You show them that fear is not a stop sign. Your story, your stretch, your progress becomes a mirror for others. And that kind of influence doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from doing the hard things and being willing to talk about them. It comes from modeling what it looks like to be uncomfortable but committed. To grow is to choose discomfort again and again. Not recklessly, not without purpose, but intentionally. You choose the path that challenges you because you know the easy one leads to stagnation. And the moment you realize that, the fear doesn't disappear, but your reason for moving forward becomes stronger than your reason for staying still. That's when growth truly begins. Risk often gets misunderstood. It's frequently lumped together with recklessness, danger, or impulsivity, but they are not the same. Risk is not about being careless. It's about being deliberate and stepping into the unknown with purpose. Recklessness ignores consequences. Risk calculates them and chooses to act despite the possibility of failure. That's a powerful distinction because if you don't learn how to embrace risk, you'll never learn how to move forward in life. Every step toward progress has risk built into it. Whether you're starting a business, having a difficult conversation, or simply making a change in your routine, you are leaving behind the known for something new. And that takes courage. Progress requires change, and change is inherently uncomfortable. It means trading what's certain for what's possible. That's why risk becomes the starting point of every transformation. It's not enough to want a different result. You have to do something that carries a chance of not working. That's what makes the outcome meaningful. If it were guaranteed, it wouldn't be growth. It would just be repetition. The most important breakthroughs, whether personal, professional, or societal, have all come from people who were willing to take risks others avoided. They asked questions no one else dared to ask. They tried things others thought were too risky. And in doing so, they expanded what was possible. The most dangerous place to be isn't where risk exists. It's where no risk exists at all. Because a life without risk is a life without movement. You may be safe, but you're also stuck. And over time, that lack of movement turns into stagnation. Then slowly it turns into regret. What makes risk worthwhile isn't just the possibility of reward. It's the process of becoming someone who is willing to take responsibility for their future. When you take a risk, you're saying, I believe something better is possible, and I'm willing to test myself to find out. There's also something deeply human about risk. From childhood, we grow through it. A baby learning to walk risks falling with every step. A student asking a question risks looking foolish. A creator sharing their work risks rejection. But none of that progress would ever happen without the risk. And the reason those moments matter isn't just because of the result. It's because of the decision to show up in the face of uncertainty. That's where integrity lives. That's where authenticity is born, not in the avoidance of failure, but in the willingness to meet it with purpose. Every goal you have, every dream, every ambition sits on the other side of a decision that feels risky. And that's okay. That's how you know it's real. If it feels too safe, it probably isn't big enough. If it comes too easily, it probably won't grow you. So many people wait for perfect timing, perfect conditions, or perfect confidence before they act. But perfection is an illusion. It's often used as a shield to avoid taking responsibility for the outcome. Risk doesn't wait for perfection. Risk asks for presence, it asks for clarity, and it rewards the ones who are willing to act when others hesitate. When we reframe risk as an invitation, not a threat, we unlock our capacity for courage. It doesn't mean you'll succeed every time. It means you'll learn every time. That shift changes everything. It turns fear into feedback. It turns mistakes into mentors. And over time, it builds a mindset that's capable of pursuing progress without being paralyzed by the unknown. The people who make real impact in this world aren't the ones who have the fewest fears. They're the ones who act in spite of them. Being risk averse may protect you from short-term discomfort, but it will cost you long-term fulfillment. The job you never applied for, the move you didn't make, the idea you didn't speak up about. Each one becomes a chapter that could have been, but wasn't because the fear of failure won. When you understand that risk is a natural and necessary part of building something better, you stop trying to avoid it and start learning how to manage it. You become more strategic, more intentional, and more resilient. So the question isn't, how do I eliminate risk? The real question is, what risk is worth taking? That's where progress lives. In the choices that stretch you, in the decisions that challenge you, and in the actions that move you forward, even when there's no guarantee. Every compelling story ever told is built around a moment of decision, not a comfortable decision, not the easy or obvious choice, but a bold one. The kind of decision that shifts the direction of a person's life. These moments are often surrounded by uncertainty, fear, and doubt, but it's exactly that friction that gives the story its power. The greater the risk, the deeper the impact. The more vulnerable the leap, the more inspiring the journey becomes. If you look at the stories that stick with people, whether in books, history, film, or real life, they all have one thing in common. Someone made a bold decision when it would have been easier to play it safe. This idea applies to all of us, not just public figures or people in the spotlight. Every individual has a story forming right now. Every person has choices they're facing that will either turn into memories they're proud of or regrets they carry. Bold decisions are what separate the ordinary from the remarkable. A bold decision doesn't have to be dramatic or loud. It just has to come from a place of conviction. It's saying yes when everyone else says no. It's leaving when staying would be easier. It's speaking up when silence feels safer. These choices define character, not just outcomes. When you live cautiously, you may reduce your chances of failure, but you also eliminate the possibility of creating something meaningful. Playing it safe can make you invisible, not just to the world, but to yourself. You stop discovering who you really are because you never give yourself the chance to find out. Bold decisions, on the other hand, reveal something about you. They strip away the masks, the personas, the expectations, and they ask you to act on what truly matters. They require clarity. They demand alignment between your beliefs and your behavior. The truth is, boldness is contagious. When someone around you makes a courageous choice, it gives you permission to do the same. It disrupts the cycle of doubt and hesitation. It reminds you that fear is not final. When you take a bold step, even if it's small, you become the kind of person other people remember. Not because of how loud you were, but because of how true you were. Your story begins to inspire, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. And real stories, honest, raw, courageous stories are what move people. They make others feel seen. They open doors for conversation, connection, and transformation. You don't need to wait for some life-changing opportunity to appear in order to be bold. The bold decision is often already in front of you. It's that one thing you've been thinking about doing but haven't. That conversation you've been meaning to have. That passion project you've pushed to the side. Those aren't just random ideas. They're chapters waiting to be written, but they won't write themselves. They need you to decide, and deciding takes courage. It takes the willingness to let go of guaranteed outcomes and step into possibility. A bold decision isn't defined by how others see it. It's defined by what it means to you. Sometimes the boldest thing you can do is to walk away from something that everyone else says you should hold on to. Sometimes it's choosing to stay when everyone expects you to leave. Sometimes it's starting over. Sometimes it's simply saying, this is who I am, without apology. What matters most is that it comes from your center, not from pressure, not from fear, and not from the desire to impress, but from a place of clarity and commitment. You can't tell a powerful story by repeating the same decisions everyone else is making. You tell a powerful story by standing at a crossroads and choosing the path that aligns with your truth, even when it's harder. And the beautiful part is, even if the outcome isn't what you expected, even if you fail, you've already won something greater. You've chosen to live actively instead of passively. You've chosen to shape your life instead of letting it be shaped for you. That's where fulfillment starts. People won't remember every detail of your life, but they will remember the choices you made when it counted, the decisions that revealed your values, your courage, and your voice. And those moments, those bold, sometimes quiet, sometimes terrifying decisions become the stories worth telling. They're the ones you look back on, not just with pride, but with gratitude, because they're the moments where you became who you truly are. Leadership is not about titles, positions, or authority. It is about responsibility to move forward even when the path is unclear, responsibility to take action when no one else will, and responsibility to carry the weight of decisions that impact others. At the heart of all of that is courage, because the truth is, leadership is not easy. It demands that you step into situations where there is no script, no guarantee of success, and no clear outcome. It demands that you take ownership in the face of risk. That's why courage isn't just a useful trait in leadership. It is essential. The people we consider great leaders throughout history weren't the ones who had all the answers. They were the ones who showed up when it mattered most, even if they didn't know what would happen next. They didn't wait until conditions were perfect or until every fear disappeared. They acted with integrity and intention despite uncertainty. That's what separates those who lead from those who wait to be led. It's not about fearlessness. It's about choosing action even with fear present. It's about being the first to step into the unknown and showing others that it's safe to follow. Uncertainty is a constant in life. Circumstances shift, markets change, people evolve, and unexpected challenges arise. A true leader doesn't pretend to have all the answers in these moments. Instead, they lean into the unknown with honesty. They acknowledge what they don't know. They stay grounded in their values, and they make decisions guided by vision, not by fear. This kind of leadership builds trust because people don't need perfection from their leaders. They need authenticity. They need someone who is real, someone who is willing to be transparent and steady, even when nothing else feels certain. Courage in leadership also means being willing to go first, whether it's delivering bad news, initiating a difficult conversation, or admitting a mistake. Courageous leader doesn't hide behind silence or comfort. They step into those hard moments because they understand that avoidance erodes credibility. It is tempting to wait and hope things resolve themselves. But leadership means accepting that progress comes from deliberate action, not from passive observation. It means having the courage to move the needle, even if others are unsure or afraid. When a leader faces uncertainty with courage, they give others permission to do the same. It creates a ripple effect. People begin to realize that fear isn't a barrier. It's a signal that something meaningful is on the other side. The environment starts to shift. Teams take more initiative. People communicate more honestly. Innovation begins to emerge, all because one person chose not to run from the unknown, but to walk into it with open eyes and a steady voice. One of the most underestimated forms of courage in leadership is the courage to listen. It may sound simple, but it takes strength to sit in discomfort, to hear criticism without becoming defensive, to understand opposing views without immediately trying to defend your own. That level of listening requires humility, and humility is a form of courage. It says, I don't have to be right. I have to be real. And that's the kind of leader people want to follow, not the one who appears invincible, but the one who is deeply human. Another critical moment where courage is required is when values are tested. It's easy to talk about principles when everything is going well, but when pressure rises, resources are limited, and the stakes are high, that's when values either hold or collapse. The courageous leader stays anchored. They don't cut corners to protect their image. They don't compromise just to survive. They make hard calls rooted in what they believe is right, even if it's unpopular. And in doing so, they create a culture that reflects integrity, not just performance. Leadership that lacks courage is fragile. It crumbles under pressure. It seeks approval rather than progress. But courageous leadership is durable. It can adapt. It can bend without breaking because it isn't built on perfection or control. It's built on purpose. And that purpose provides the strength to walk through uncertainty with conviction. When a leader embraces that uncertainty not as a problem, but as part of the process, everything changes. They become a source of calm in chaos, a compass in the storm. People don't follow leaders because they always know what to do. They follow them because they trust that even when things are unclear, this person won't abandon the mission. They'll stay present. They'll be honest, and they'll keep moving forward. That's what courage in leadership looks like. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's consistent, grounded, and deeply human. And in times of uncertainty, that kind of leadership is not just valuable, it's vital. There's a point in every person's life where the past becomes too heavy to carry, where the present begins to feel like a repetition of yesterday, and the future starts calling you forward. That's the moment where something powerful needs to happen. You have to turn the page, just like in a great book. Every story that matters moves forward. There is no climax, no transformation, no impact if the character stays in the same chapter, repeating the same patterns, clinging to the same comfort. Growth only begins when you stop reading what already happened and start being willing to write what comes next. Turning the page doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means refusing to live in it. It means recognizing that while your past may have shaped you, it does not have to define you. Too many people spend their lives trapped in a single chapter, whether it's a mistake they made, a failure they experienced, a loss they suffered, or even a success they're afraid they'll never repeat. They hold on to that moment like it's the peak of their story or the limit of their potential. But the truth is, as long as you're still here, the story isn't finished. There are more pages waiting to be written, but you can't write them while holding on to what was. Turning the page is an act of courage. It means stepping into the unknown, trusting that even if you don't know exactly what's ahead, you are willing to take the next step. It means acknowledging that comfort can quickly turn into stagnation if you're not intentional. That includes relationships that no longer serve your growth, routines that have become lifeless, and beliefs that once protected you but now limit you. When you stay in a chapter that no longer fits who you are becoming, you slowly shrink to fit your past instead of expanding into your future. Some people resist turning the page because they confuse consistency with loyalty. They think moving forward means giving up, or that change is a betrayal of who they used to be. But real consistency is about staying loyal to your purpose, not your past. It's about evolving in service of who you're meant to be, not staying stuck out of fear or guilt. The hardest part is that turning the page usually comes with uncertainty. There's no map for what comes next. You don't always know how things will unfold, but clarity doesn't come before movement. It comes from movement. The act of turning the page reveals the next part of your story. That's where the learning, growth, and transformation take place. Every person you admire, every story that inspired you was made by someone who chose not to stay where they were. They took the risk to begin again. They let go of what was good enough in search of something meaningful. They embraced reinvention, and they kept going even when the next chapter started slow, messy, or unclear. That's what it means to be the author of your life. You don't wait for someone else to decide when the chapter is over. You decide, you choose. And when you do, everything starts to shift. The page-turning moments don't always come with fanfare. Sometimes they're quiet. Sometimes it's the decision to stop waiting for permission. Sometimes it's walking away from something that no longer aligns with your values. Sometimes it's finally doing the thing you've put off for years. These choices might look small on the surface, but they carry the weight of a new beginning. And beginnings, no matter how uncertain, are filled with potential. If you want a story that moves people, a life that means something to you and to others, you have to keep evolving. And evolution only happens when you're willing to step into a new chapter. You must be willing to say, that part of my life taught me something. It mattered. But now it's time for something else. And that something else won't be perfect. It might be messy. You might stumble. But at least it will be alive. You will be growing, changing, discovering. And that is where the real power of your story lies, not in what you've done, but in what you're still willing to do. Each page turned is a declaration that you're not finished, that you believe there is more inside you, that the story is still unfolding and you're the one holding the pen. That's how legacies are written, not by staying where it's safe, but by continuing to move, continuing to write, continuing to turn the page, no matter what. The stories that shape our lives, our identities, our legacies, are not built from moments of certainty, but from moments of boldness. Growth begins the moment we step beyond our comfort zone. Progress is born from the courage to take risks, not recklessness, but intentional action in the face of the unknown. Every meaningful story starts with a decision to move, to speak, to act when it would be easier to stay still. And that is the foundation of leadership, not knowing all the answers, but showing up with conviction even when the path isn't clear. Your story doesn't end because you've faced failure, fear, or uncertainty. It ends only when you stop turning the page. And so if you want to lead, to grow, to live a life that matters, embrace the risk, write the next chapter, and become the person your future story needs you to be. Because in the end, no risk, no story.